What's up, people? We are back with more of Eden. If any of you haven't watched the previous video, I urge you right now to just stop this video right here. Of course, listen to what I have to say first and just watch the previous video, because I'll even put like a giant thumbnail thingy that you can just click on right here to go to the previous video, because it's pretty important to understand what's happening right now. Because yeah, we've escaped pretty much, and it was so emotional. Like, we had to leave Alicia-chan behind. I'm not sure what actually happened to the rest. I mean, a bomb didn't go off. It was just sort of a distraction, so I don't think anyone died or something, but it's just, yeah, Ryou and Shion escaped, and I'm not sure how. I mean, Alicia could be saved, I guess, but I don't think we're ever going to see her again, so anyway, let's continue. I actually want to say that there's like an illness going on in our school or something, and although I haven't been caught by it too much, I just have a little bit of a stuffy nose and a scratchy throat, but so it might make my voice sound a bit different, and my reading might sound less good, I guess. I don't know, but enough talking. It's time for us to read. I felt an uncomfortable sensation in my ears as I woke. A distant voice, something like a whispered, lingered faintly. However, I had no recollection of what might have been said. Oh well. There was no use in thinking about dreams. The instant I woke up, I was fully alert. Habits like that were hard to break. It seemed that some aspects of my military training had been indelibly ingrained into my psyche, for better or worse. I got out of bed and quickly got changed. I took the gun from my pillow's side and secured it in my underarm holster before putting on my coat. That's not to say I needed it, and my housemate didn't like to see me carrying it, but I always felt uncomfortable if I didn't have it. I smiled wryly, amused by how paranoid I still was, and decided to head into the living room. As expected, no one was there. She had never once woken up before me since we came here. This was the status quo. I paid it no mind and headed for the kitchen. Is that Alicia's clock standing on like the I don't even know what the thing is. It's on top of the bookshelf. Okay then. Breakfast came before anything else. That being said, the fridge wasn't exactly well stocked, and I didn't really know how to make anything fancy. I checked what we had available and started to think of a menu. There's the leftover bread from yesterday, some eggs. I made scrambled eggs yesterday, so I guess sunny side up would be good for today. That's right, some variety. Next, I could heat some canned corn soup and maybe a tomato and lettuce salad to go with it. Sounds delicious. With that decided, I promptly go to work. I set out the plates and the table and transferred the sizzling eggs from the pan. I served the salad I had already prepared and sat out the bread and the soup. An unspeakably delectable aroma drifted through the air, teasing my appetite. Alright. Just as I was about to head back into the kitchen, the door opened. With a quiet pitter-patter, she entered the room with her long hair waving gently behind her. Her eyes were drowsy, and I wasn't sure where she was looking at. Morning, Shion. Good morning. She was almost able to finish her sentence before flopping down at the table. You know, if you're going to greet me, you should at least try to finish your sentence. She seemed like the kind of girl who was taught proper manners at some point, but had long since stopped caring. Ing. Did you wash your face? Why are we acting like a dad? Oh, she just falls right asleep. She fell asleep. With her face firmly planted onto the table, she fell back asleep. It wasn't as if she needed to wake up early, and I appreciated the part of her that tried to do so, but it doesn't count if she just falls asleep in the living room. Hey, Shion! Huh? Munch, munch. You're eating your hair. I guess to be accurate, she was just gnawing on whatever hair fell in the vicinity of her mouth, but still. It looked like she just wasn't just sleepy, but hungry as well. She was like a child. Shion, eat or sleep, pick one. I'll eat while I sleep. Can you really do that? Look, it's tastier than your hair. Eat it before it gets cold. Shion finally picked herself up and grabbed her knife and fork. You've got it backwards. The knife goes in your right hand and the fork in your left. I'm ambidextrous. Dang, of course she is. Of course she is. She's a freaking genius. She said dully, still seemingly half asleep. It was more a matter of manners though. Wanting a girl as beautiful as Shion to use proper table manners may have been a selfish wish on my part. Kind of. Thanks for the food. Contrary to my expectations, Shion stabbed her fork in the egg yolk. Oh well, this was probably fine. Phew! I'm full. Shion finally awake. Sipped on her after breakfast tea. There's such a thing? After breakfast tea. It was delicious again today. You're really good at cooking, Ryou. Is it me or does she just look so much more alive? I don't know. Something on her face when she was in her face rather, not on her face of course. When she was at the facility, just made it seem like, I guess, sort of depressed or something. I don't know. She just seems so much more lively now. Maybe it's the pajamas too. I don't know. I wouldn't really call this cooking. I've done it since I was a kid, and I've prepared meals by myself on the battlefield as well. It's not that difficult once you get used to it. I really wouldn't know. Shion murmured a bit sadly. Aww. This girl accomplished feats normal people couldn't even imagine, but when it came to normal, everyday things, she was virtually helpless. All manners of housework, including cooking, were practically impossible. Even everyday necessities were insurmountable feats for her. If I left her alone, she couldn't take a bath, brush her hair, or even change her clothes. What? Okay, that's to the extreme. To make matters worse, she could fall asleep virtually anywhere, and waking her back up was a chore in and of itself. She was quite a hopeless girl. Is it just my imagination, or am I being pitied right now? Must be your imagination. But her intuition and mind were both razor sharp. Those two things were so extraordinary, they made up for the 10 or 20 things she couldn't do. Alright then, I'm going to clean up. Oh, I'll help. I signaled for her to stop when she tried to get up. No, I'm all set. Why don't you go get changed and bring out the laundry? Are you still angry from that time I broke a bunch of dishes? No, I'm not mad. That's only what a mad person says. I'm not mad. I was sure she could handle something as easy as washing dishes. It was partially my fault for carelessly leaving it to her. But given how hard it was to get new tableware in our current environment, I didn't want Shion to handle fragile items all that much. The weather is just so nice today, so go take the laundry out. I'll be fine. Okay. Shion nodded, still looking a little displeased. I looked out the window. Look, Shion, it's beautiful out there. Whoa, the weather really is nice. Why does this picture make it seem like we're living in the clouds or something? A flying, floating house. She softly whispered with delight. Here, Shion could go out under the dazzling sunlight whenever she pleased. She could run as far as she wanted, anywhere her heart led her. Except she had to come back home, of course. It had already been several months since we fled the research facility. It hadn't been difficult to avoid being noticed since most cities had already been deserted, but we still couldn't let our guard down for a moment. Ultimately, Shion and I finally made it to this mountain. The place where I was born and raised, and where my sister took refuge. We settled into this minimal living space after being on the run for 2 months. A few months have already passed since then. I couldn't tell whether that time had been long or short. Life on the run must have been hard on Shion and her weakening body, but she never complained. There were times she even seemed to enjoy it, surprisingly enough. Seeing, feeling, hearing the outside world for the first time, I could understand how it might have been fun for her. Still, I wondered how she had truly felt about those days where we were on edge 24/7 in fear of our pursuers. Shion wasn't the best at showing her emotions, and it seemed as though she hadn't really changed much from when she was at the research facility either. Ryou. Huh? What are you spacing out for? Aren't you going to the fields? Yeah, sorry. I suppose the only notable changes of these past few months would be that Shion stopped calling me Warrant Officer Haruna and started calling me Ryou. It made sense since I wasn't a soldier anymore. I doubted there was any deeper meaning to it. Granted, there was no telling exactly how the military was treating the situation. Haven't you been acting a bit strange since you came here? Have I? It's probably because I'm back at my childhood home. Maybe I've just lost some steam. It's more like you've been acting a little suspicious lately. Acting suspicious? Blunt as always. Her comments were even trickier to handle since I knew she meant no ill will. Am I wrong? She held down her hair, which swayed in the wind. Come to think of it, one more thing about Shion had changed. At the facility, she always had her hair tied back neatly. Now she was just letting it flow as it pleased. Now that I think about it, maybe that was actually the difference that I noticed when she was sitting at the table. It could be something as simple as that, right? That just makes a person look completely different. It's nothing really. With the change in environment, it shouldn't come as a surprise if I've changed a little. Really? She peered into my eyes. I couldn't help but be briefly captivated by her crystal clear gaze. Really? It was a lie. You've changed too, haven't you? Your hairstyle and attire. Her long hair fluttered all around, and that summer dress was very becoming, though her appearance wasn't the only thing that seemed to have changed. Never mind me. However, she decided not to comment upon her own transformation. She probably figured it didn't matter. We're talking about you right now. Never mind me either. It's nothing, really. I see. Shion nodded slightly. She's analyzing me. It's fine by me as long as you're okay with it. She didn't sound very satisfied, but Shion took her eyes off me. Okay, let's go. Yeah. I could never tell what was on Shion's mind, but I suspected she could tell what I was thinking with pinpoint accuracy. Oh, this beautiful... Well, it's not really flowers. I wanted to call it flowers, but it's just like leaves, I guess. The first problem we faced when we got here was food. I went down the mountain and found some preserved goods in an abandoned town about a 2-hour drive away. There was more than enough for the two of us to eat comfortably for a few years. That being said, there was a limit to how much I could carry at once, and even though the town was uninhabited, there was an inherent danger in leaving the mountain repeatedly. Above all else, eating nothing but canned and preserved foods got really old fast. I found a few wild chickens on the mountain and was able to secure an egg supply, and on very rare occasions we could slaughter one for meat, Oh, chicken nuggets, chicken wings, yummy. But it left us wanting some other fresh foods as well. That being the case, after some discussion, we decided to grow our own. It was unsurprising that the fields I had tilled as a child had become rough and ragged, so we had no choice but to rework them. Luckily, we had no shortage of land, nor the necessary tools. I secured some seeds and seedlings in a town, but it wasn't a very satisfactory amount. The majority of the day was spent tending the fields at present. Should we expand the fields a little today? I folded my arms and gazed at the plots where the first of our crops were almost ready for harvest. Wouldn't maintenance be difficult if we expand any further? It's quite difficult already. Of course, Shion was helping with the fields as well. Her frilly clothes were hardly suited for garden work, but she had an avid distaste of attire that wasn't cute. According to her, if they get dirty, we can just wash them. That's good logic, or so she said. For the record, I was the one who did the laundry. Oh well, it didn't matter. Ryou, what are you looking at? Do I have something on me? No, nothing. I shook my head. There's just no telling how what we've already planted will turn out. We'll be better off planting more. The land isn't all that fertile either. This is land your parents cleared, isn't it? They didn't clear it, they just decided to settle down here. From the sounds of it, this whole area has been designated an abandoned sector for decades now. Now that you mention it, what happened to your parents? Her face told me she already had a few theories. My guess is that they were probably separatists or something of the sorts. There was no real reason to hide it. As far as I was concerned, it was all in the past. It's more than likely that everyone who lived here were separatists, not just my parents. It was a conclusion I reached shortly after I joined the military. The solar panels installed on the summit ensured electricity, and the lake was an abundant water source. Not only were they capable of maintaining a self-sufficient food supply, everyone here lived fundamentally unreliant on external goods, my parent included. They had intended to live here forever. Even if the world were to perish, they had no intention of running into space. They wanted to meet their end on this planet. All would have been fine if they could have just stayed. The Earth Evacuation Project wouldn't allow a single exception. Every last person was ordered to board the colony ships. Yes, anyone who refused had a gun shoved in their face. Nobody was allowed to stay on Earth, save for a few government officials and soldiers. But of course, they too were finally beginning to take off into space. It stands to reason that people will revolt if you resort to such drastic measures. That's why they were armed. They learned how to handle weapons, refined their strategies, collected intelligence, and prepared themselves. I hadn't realized it at the time, but I suspected I'd learned how to fight for my parents too. Was I able to easily adjust to the military and make my way across the battlefield so well because I had some elementary groundwork in place? Your parents and the people who lived here fought back, didn't they? Probably. I'm guessing they left the mountain and went on the offensive before they were overtaken by the army. But even if they did, Sion solemnly whispered. They were few in numbers, and I doubt they were very well equipped. There's no way that I could have won in a fight against a legitimate military force. I assume most of them died. I had personally taken part in subjugating guerrilla forces, so it was easy for me to imagine what sort of end most of them had met. There may well have been people I knew amongst the droves I'd shot to death. I never looked at the bodies, so it was entirely possible. It was even possible that my parents... Oh wow, that's dark. Sorry. Huh? Why are you apologizing? The project I pushed forward killed so many people. Far more people survived due to the project. It's not something you should fret over. No. I never once felt guilty about the many lives taken in my stead. That is probably my sin. Shion turned to look at the tiny sprouts dancing in the wind. Her face was deadpan. From a different perspective, Shion's iconic figure took on a completely different meaning. To those who did not think of her as a savior, those who opposed leaving Earth, she was the symbol of everything they hated. But then, the same could be said of anyone. You'll never get anything done if you want everyone to love you. We returned to the cottage after the sun went down. Shion flopped into her chair, utterly exhausted from helping me expand the fields. Shion, could you at least close your legs? Human legs are made to open. It's a very natural position. Though she sounded worn out as she said it, Shion did bring her knees together. As I'd leaned over the past few months, as I've learned, Shion had almost no feminine modesty to speak of. She would change in front of me without batting an eyelash, and didn't even wash her own underwear. It was as if she didn't know how to behave around a man. Well, that's kind of what happens when you spend 100 years only with Alicia around you, I guess. Not that it matters, but don't fall asleep, Shion. If you're going to sleep, do it after you've eaten and taken a bath. You're so spry, even after all that work. Well then, how about we just see how spry you are? Again? We have to check every day. Shion frowned a bit. I knew she hated being treated like she was sick, but we run into problems later if she didn't learn to deal with it. At present, I wasn't very concerned. Living on the mountain had given her quite a bit of stamina, so much that I could have sworn she had gotten healthier. But we had to be on our guard. Shion didn't lie, but self-diagnosis was unreliable at best. They say no one understands their own body best, but I didn't believe it for a second. In fact, I doubted that maid girl had known just how weak she had become. Exactly, that's one thing too, right? Usually when you're sick, and at least if you don't want to be, then you can't tend to underestimate it. Because then you're like, no, I'm fine, and in reality you're actually just pretty damn sick. Okay, first open your mouth. Okay. Shion went to take a bath after we'd finished dinner. I switched on the old radio I had placed in the corner of the room. One ear-grating static came out, or only. I tried to wait a little while, but the reception never got any better. I gave up and switched it off. I retrieved several scraps of paper from my pocket. Alicia. Notes Alicia had jotted down were folded up and placed inside the radio. They contained checklists for reviewing Shion's condition, different types of medicines for use in emergencies, and other notes related to her care. Wow, Alicia was on top of things. Alicia hadn't written a single thing about herself. Had she never considered the possibility that she would die? No. If that were the case, these notes would be unnecessary. Did she have some sort of premonition? Hey, Alicia. Am I fit to be your substitute? If there was any justice in the world, Alicia would be by Shion's side right now. Shion may have come along at a very convenient time since I had just lost my purpose in life. Once I'd taken her somewhere safe, or that I'd at least deemed safe, I again felt a sort of emptiness within me. It was just as Shion said. I had become restless ever since coming here. My life seemed to have lost all purpose. I didn't know what I should do. For the first time in my life, I had more freedom than I knew what to do with. Oh god. This was such a peaceful episode, and I'm actually expecting at least a little the peacefulness to continue for a little while, but I have a feeling that it's not gonna end on a high note. But you know what, my premonition skills probably isn't that good as Alicia, so what the hell do I know. But it's time for us to end the video here, so thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.